Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups on the L&L research page. If you hit the connect button and look for study groups, we can be found there. We can also be found on Facebook if you search for Seattle Law of One study group. We do also meet on Zoom Tuesdays from 3:30 to 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, PM. We meet on Tuesdays, and you don't have to live in Seattle or the Seattle area to join those sessions. As long as you're available online at that time, all are welcome to join us. Today, we are blessed again to have Jim McCarty joining us for some informal conversation about the Law of One and how to apply it in our daily lives. How are you doing today, Jim?
Doing very well. It's a gorgeous day in Kentucky. Spring is here for sure.
Oh, that's beautiful. What's new in the garden? What are you doing in the garden these days?
Well, I've been transplanting some annual flowers to the front flower gardens and back gardens, trying to get some flowers that are deer resistant. And some of them are really pretty. I haven't ever grown some of these before. Angelonia and blue salvia and some lantana. And then other things like sun patience. And I've got some annuals coming up. Hollyhocks are coming up, and a giant perennial hibiscus are coming up and looking good. Right now, there's just a few hollyhocks in bloom, no hibiscus in bloom. Their stalks are about 4 feet tall, though, so they're doing well.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I always enjoy reading about it on the Camelot Journal, and it seems like there's always more things that you got going on there. Which reminds me, I was going to ask you a question, given how much time that you spend working in the garden and planting and replanting and weeding and such. Do you spend much time just sitting in the garden and just enjoying the fruits of your labor?
After I'm done, it's more likely that I'll do that, walk around and just look at things and see how it's all coming together and take a look at what maybe needs to be done next. And later in the evening, I'm more likely to go out and just enjoy the feeling of the garden and the stonework and so forth.
That's nice. Yeah, it must be such a joy. I know I don't do a whole lot of gardening myself. My wife generally does the gardening, but I really enjoy sitting up there and just enjoying watching the bees buzz around and pollinating flowers and just enjoying the sun and the air and the elements. And we're getting a little bit more sun in Seattle these days, but it's a little slow in coming.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a couple questions about archetypes, because I know that you have been writing about it a fair bit in the Camelot Journal in the last week or so. And again, for folks who are not familiar with this, the Camelot Journal is Jim's daily journal where he shares some passages from Ra and his reflections on them with 40 plus years of hindsight. They're a joy to read and a great learning tool for all students of the Law of One. It can be found on the L&L research page. If you go to the homepage, click on Connect, and then Bring Forth Forum. I believe it can be found there. So Jim, you've been talking about archetypes recently, and I was looking at one of your journal entries from a week ago, I think, last Saturday, and you were talking about a passage from session 77, questions 21 and 22, where Ra was basically talking about how the plan, how the 22 archetypes for our logos were planned out in advance to help accelerate the spiritual evolution of entities in this logos. And I know that you've talked about this a fair bit before, but maybe for folks who aren't quite familiar with it, can you talk a little bit about the 22 archetypes that were chosen for our logos in particular, and perhaps the significance of the 22nd one, the choice archetype, which seems to be key or central to the whole archetypical mind of this logos. Would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Sure. The archetypical mind is a way in which the creator has an opportunity to know itself through the free will choice that each of us make according to how we see our evolution in our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. So each logos has a slightly more refined or unique way of presenting these archetypes while remaining within a certain framework. So there are 7 of the mind, 7 of the body, 7 of the spirit, and then there's the choice, which is number 22. So each of these 7 in mind, body, and spirit have a matrix of the mind, and a matrix, and the matrix of the mind is the magician or the conscious mind. And then it has the potentiator. And in the mind, the potentiator of the mind is the high priestess or the unconscious mind. And then there's catalyst of mind, body, and spirit. And then in the mind is the empress, is the catalyst, because it's worked with by the conscious mind. And that interaction is considered a noble action. So the noble name of empress. And the 4th is the experience of the mind. There would be a body and spirit as well. But we got detailed information on the mind, so that's why I'm going over it in a little more detail. The experience of the mind is where, when we work with our catalyst, anything that brings us away from our state of love and unity, either in the positive or the negative sense, but it usually happens more in the negative sense, like we're frustrated or angry or confused or jealous or whatever. But even if we're out of our mind happy about something, all of this needs to be worked with so that the product is back to the center of love. And all of these interactions between the first 4 then are recorded in the significator of the mind, which is a hierophant for the mind. And this is your significant self. This is what comes from all of your incarnations of how you process and use your catalyst, how successful you've been to get back into the heart. And that's your significant self. Now, getting back to more of just how the mind works, then the transformation of the mind is acronym number 6. And this is the lovers, or the 2 paths. This is where we first begin mentally to make a choice as to which path we're going to take. And these 2 lovers offer the positive path or the negative path. And as this is done more and more successfully, the arcana number 7, the chariot or the conqueror, is brought into play, where if we've been successful over a number of incarnations, at some point then we can begin to raise the veil of forgetting between the conscious and unconscious mind. And we've conquered the process. In this whole process of discovering who we are, we discover more and more that we have the creator within us. And the creator likewise gets to discover more ways through how we process catalysts and make free will choices, more of its own nature, which is the whole reason for the creation. So the archetypical mind is the way or the nature of the process of our evolution, the way it happens. It's like a blueprint in general. But one of the things that Ra emphasized was that each of us can look at the various facets on each card of the archetypical mind, each of the 22, to make our own unique choices within certain framework or guidelines, so that each person has a unique way of looking at things. And eventually, as we go through the mind and the body, the processing of catalysts for the body and the spirit, and doing the same thing using the potentiator, the catalyst, the experience and significator and transformation and so forth. Then we come to arcana number 22. Eventually, we become conscious seekers and make a choice as to which way we want to go, in service to others or service to self. And it seems, according to Ra, that throughout the universe, 90% of 3rd density entities decide to go in the positive sense and 10% to go in the negative sense.
And am I remembering correctly that the veil of forgetting was not there originally? It came about through a long process of what appears to be experimentation by different locals at trying and realizing that when there was no veil of forgetting, then everything was centered on service to others. And it was only through the veil of forgetting that the option of service to self came up, and that allowed for this great, what do they call it, the drama of polarity to unfold that allows us to evolve perhaps further or at a faster rate than we would otherwise. Is that about right?
It helped positively oriented entities to polarize more effectively by shielding or veiling the nature of reality as being unity and being created out of light through the power of love, focusing through the free will choice of the creator to know itself. Back before there was a veil of forgetting, entities in third density were absolutely sure they were the creator and everyone else was the creator. And there was really no reason to act according either to love or fear. And entities had to repeat third density time and time again because there was no motivation to change where they were. They knew that they were trying to get into the fourth density, but they had to repeat third density many, many times. So various logoi decided that there might be a way to enhance the process of evolution by paradoxically veiling the nature of reality, of unity, of love and light being the power and the very material of a creation from the third density entities. But within their subconscious minds, there was this knowledge that we all were one. So the subconscious mind had this desire, and it could bubble up into the conscious mind as seekers tried to figure out the meaning of their lives. And so then they discovered that this desire to know who they were and how to progress spiritually was a speeder up of the process of evolution, thanks to the veil of forgetting. But the veil of forgetting also brought into being the negative polarity, which the interaction between positive and negative has also aided the creator in knowing itself. So we are all one, whether it's positive or negative, but we get where we're going, which is back into unity with the creator, if we make a choice to be one or the other. And then, of course, by mid-sixth density, the negative entities have to give up their negative polarity, because sixth density is where you balance the love of the fourth density and the wisdom of the fifth density. And you see all as the creator, not just yourself, like negative entities have been doing. You have to see everybody. So they, being very wise, want to know the creator too. So they reverse their polarity and they don't have to go back and start over. The power that they create, as Roz said, was the same as the positive power. The one creator blinks neither at the light nor the dark, but all are available for the creator's presence.
Yeah. Beautiful and often difficult thing to remember. Certainly in these days of Earth and late third density.
Yeah. It's hard to remember that this is an illusion in third density. It's a schoolroom. We're learning certain lessons and we're all teaching each other. Sometimes it looks pretty traumatic and, you know, what's going on? And I want to get out of here.
Well, I believe Carla referred to Earth as a school for juvenile delinquents, or people who got kicked out of all their other schools or planets, if I remember correctly.
Well, it's, apparently a great deal of the population of planet Earth is what Ra called repeaters. They did not make the harvest on their home planet. So they had to choose another third density planet to try again, and many chose Earth. So we have a lot of folks who are trying again. And sometimes it's not easy to get that momentum going in the right direction.
No, indeed. And I think for folks of a certain age, able to look at the events happening in the world now and see that, wow, this is a really different world than remember seeing 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so much of what we're seeing, to me at least, doesn't really make any sense unless you look at it through this law of one perspective and you realize, oh, okay, well, that explains why we're seeing so much of what we're seeing. And having the ability right now to help maybe break those karmic cycles of bellicosity and fear and violence and war that caused the destruction of Mars and Malbec and Sirius and Deneb and Atlantis. Yes, maybe that's part of what we're here to do, to see if we can get it right this time. It's a beautiful opportunity. Am I understanding correctly then that this system of 22 archetypes that we enjoy in this logos that's the highest number of archetypes that there are?
according to Ra's knowledge, and I think it's fairly, pervasive, that 22 is the largest number. In the seventh density, the body is dropped, so they no longer have to use the body. So there's only 12. And then the 13th would be the choice, but they've already made the choice. So, yeah.
Well, and it's fascinating that you basically have 7 archetypes of the mind, 7 of the spirit, 7 of the body, and then that would be 21. And then choice is added as the 22nd one because it is so central to this archetypical mind. Would that be fair to say?
Right. The choice is, as Ross said, the axis on which the creation turns. Once this choice is made in the third density and we get into the higher densities, all the work that's done in the higher densities is based upon this choice. This is the foundation. And all they do then is refine the choice and become more pure in the choice and seek to serve others more and more effectively.
Indeed. So do you think it would be fair to say, as Earth continues to transition out of third density and into fourth density, that each of us can expect to see more opportunities to choose service to self, service to others, to polarize more purely one direction or the other?
Very definitely. Ross suggested that there are some entities here back in the early 80s. There were about 15,000 who had already made the harvest on other planets and were coming here early in order to help with the harvest of this planet. And they saw the great amount of anger and confusion and bellicosity as a great opportunity to be of service to others. And it was considered a great honor to come here and to help with all of this difficulty that we're having on Earth. And if you look at all of the catalysts that's being generated with wars and shootings and anger and dissension and all of this, that is actually food for growth if people are conscious enough to know that if they process that and begin to see love instead of anger and separation, that is enough catalyst for everybody to grow. So there's a long way to go, but there is a way to do it. And Ross suggested it would probably take between 100 and 700 years from back in the 1980s for the harvest to be complete, because the volatility of our peoples was so accentuated. It was hard to say which way people were going to go.
Indeed. Yeah, for sure. Could go on and talk about this for another couple hours, but I believe we have some folks who've been waiting to ask some questions in the chat window.
Let's ask some questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Linda, I saw that you had a question that you wanted to ask. Would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Morning, Jim. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Linda and Morris.
We have got a question in our reading the Law of One, which we do on Wednesday evenings with Joshua's group. We were talking about the exercise of fire, which is a system of healing, I believe, using what it's called here in the exercise of fire. Then I assume the healer would be working with the same energy that we spoke of as entering through the crown chakra. Is this correct? Was the question. Now, is the fire, is that now codified? Is the holy fire Reiki, or is this a different type of fire exercise that he was speaking of?
I'm not familiar with the connection with Reiki. There could be one, because this also works from a distance. The exercise of fire was usually performed by being across from the person that you were willing to and trying to heal, and receiving, putting your left hand out in front of you so that it would receive the prana, or the love light of the creator, which could be seen as fire as well. And then the right hand is seen as helping that fire or love light of the creator pass into the person that you're attempting to heal or to energize. And we did it a few times in order to help Carla to be the channel and give her more energy during the raw contact. But basically, it does use the energy of the adept, which is that energy that comes from the indigo ray. And it combines it with the love light or prana of the creator, so that the the one doing the healing is using both of those. And that's why Carla was recommended not to try that exercise, because she had very little physical energy. If she tried to use any of that to help anybody else out, it would deplete her energy to the point where it would not be safe. So she would just sit with people cross-legged in front of them, left hand down, right hand up, and have their hands the same. Their right hand to be on her left hand and vice versa. So energies could be exchanged in that way. And she was able to do basically the same thing with that technique. But I'm afraid I don't know enough about Reiki to know how that would correlate.
Very similar.
Now, except we don't leave our hands out. You're talking, in what position does the left hand go in order to get the prana? Is it in front of the person's chakra or just out?
Just out. And then the right hand is shooting forth the energy that comes up through the hand, around the body, and out over here. So you shoot the energy out with your right hand, receive it with the left hand.
Cool. And then at the same time, does it also then working with the energy that's coming in through the chakra? So it all
As
kind
it
of
goes up here like this, that energy is coming down and going out your right hand.
major cool. Okay, thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for the question. Good to see you all again.
Amen.
Indeed. Yeah, thank you for the question. And I was seeing that Shayla had a question from Sue Wen, which might have been the same question or perhaps a little bit different. Shayla, did you still have a question to ask?
Yes, because she also mentioned something that's called middle pillar exercise. What is that? Is it the same, similar?
I'll have to tell you that I don't know what it is. Don asked about that once because he had been into white ritual magic for a long time before the raw contact. And now and then he would ask a question about some facet of that. In the middle pillar exercise, I believe he said that there wasn't any protection from the floor, if I remember correctly. And should there be? So I don't know what the middle pillar exercise is. I never got into it. We did a little bit of white ritual magic, mostly the banishing ritual of a lesser pentagram, using to purify and protect our room. Other than that, though, there wasn't a lot done that, even though Ross suggested it would be helpful somewhere around session 70 if we did that. And so Don began asking questions in more detail around session 74 to get more information. But I don't know about the middle pillar. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you for asking. We did talk a little bit about the banishing ritual at our last session, I believe. And yes, the directions for how to do that are actually found on the L&O research page. I don't remember the details of how to find it, but I believe if you go to the raw contact link and scroll down to the bottom, they've got a whole bunch of different links to different rituals and teachings related to the raw contact in particular.
The website is now totally searchable. I think you could just put that in. If you go to the website on the home page, up in the upper right corner, you see a magnifying glass. Click on the magnifying glass and ask whatever it is you're looking for, and it'll bring it to you. It just was activated about 5 days ago.
Does it have an answer to life, universe, and everything?
Only if it's been channeled somewhere or spoken of in the raw contact. It's not quite like Google. It's not exactly the Oracle.
Put in 42 and see what comes up. Yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah, the new search engine is a beautiful piece of work. Many thanks to Daniel, I believe, who was the person who did the coding work on that. And yeah, it's a super wonderful tool for all students, teachers, the loved one. Again, if you just go to the L&L research homepage and click in the magnifying little window with the magnifying glass in the upper right-hand corner, it's great. Ken Walker, I believe you had a question that you wanted to ask.
Yes, hi Jim, good to see you again.
No, good to see you.
Thank you. Just a quick question. There was a one of the quote of the days, maybe 3 weeks or so ago, was a October of 2019 or 2009 channeling in which you asked Quo a question about a upcoming visit to Rosslyn Chapel and whether that would be an opportunity for you to open the 8th chakra, the gateway to intelligent infinity. And so I'm interested to hear how that experience went for you, if you're willing to share, and then also whether you have thoughts on, along the same lines, the significance of that or other sacred sites in our individual or group energy work.
Well, I actually remember very little about that, so that's a good indication that it didn't work really well. That was 12, 13 years ago. Yeah. I think that any time you want to do something like that, it's worthwhile to try. I think that when the time is right, that occurs. I think that your desire and your will to make breakthroughs in your own conscious awareness are probably very helpful, but there's a combination between desire and will, and when the time is right. So I think there are various places on the planet, and that was very likely one, that there are energies that are able to enhance your will, much like the Queen's Chamber in the pyramid would enhance the initiate's will to seek the creator. And the whole idea there is to give up all desire for anything but knowing the creator. As long as there is something that has a pull on you in another direction for a particular reason, maybe it's pre-incarnative, maybe it's what you're working with right now in your own learning, then that is where your energy will go. So that's about the best I can say about that. And I'm sorry, I don't remember more about that particular experience. I find as I get older that a lot of the experiences in the past kind of drop away. And I don't remember them. I don't remember. I just had a friend of mine from college 55 years ago come visit me. And we exchanged memories of what we did back in college. And we had very different memories of what things were like and how we met and what the circumstances were. So memory is a good friend when it works.
I guess that's why you check the Akashic records. Everything is recorded there.
Right. Yeah. Well, if you forgot it, go there and find it.
Yeah. Ken, did you have any follow-up questions on that?
No, I don't. Thank you, Jim. Great thoughts. I visited Rosslyn Chapel several years ago, and it was a very meaningful experience for me. So
I'm glad. I'm glad you remember it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a wonder to me that you can remember anything that happened from these raw sessions 40 plus years ago, not to mention these 1600 plus sessions that you've had with Quo. I think I think actually that does remind me of a question I was going to ask you. Like, I think you said at some point that you do take notes, or you have some document that you've created where you keep track of some of the more important passages that seem near and dear to you. Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, I do have a notebook that has a lot of quotes in it. A lot of things that I find interesting. You know, people have different things they find interesting in the raw contact. And I think the whole raw contact was absolutely fascinating. But there's some things that really kind of struck a note. And so I have a lot of those in the little notebook over there. I call them interesting raw quotes, as if there is any quote that's not interesting.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. I have a Google Doc where I've been copying and pasting quotes from Ra and from Quo as well. It's a joy to always go back and look at them again. I believe Ragnar had a question. Ragnar, would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Hello. Got a question today to ask on behalf of my wife. She'll see the recording. Hi, honey. A few weeks ago, wife was in her studio listening to the most excellent narration of the raw contact on audiobook. And the session must have been striking a chord, because someone in time space caught a whiff and moseyed on over, and she became the recipient of a decidedly negative psychic greeting. Now, I assume that during the actual contact, similarly interested parties were likely swarming the three of you like paparazzi. So I wonder if you might have any pro tips for liaisons with the Confederation's loyal opposition.
Yes. The whole idea of negatively oriented entities being able to interfere with your positive contacts of whatever nature of channeling or trying to be of service to others is based upon the right of the negatively oriented entities to have their philosophy exposed to others in the same way positive philosophy is being exposed, so that there is always a balance in our reality here of access to positive and negative information, so that people always have the ability and the right to make a choice. So our negative friend, we discovered there was a negative friend of fifth density that had decided to take over the duty, he might say, to stop the raw contact, because we had the ability through getting this information from raw to help people make changes in consciousness and make choices in a positive path. That is a kind of power that is a light that is seen by those on the inner planes. And the negative entities wish to either control that light, take it over, and perhaps become the channel through the means of mimicking positivity and then turning the corner enough at some point to take the desire away from positive service to others to service to self. And if that doesn't work, then the fifth density entities decide that perhaps putting the light out would be the best alternative. Many groups over the years started out very positive, and Don found out that most, according to Raw, had their information mixed so that they didn't know that they were getting negative information, because negative entities are very crafty and they give you what seems to be positive and then move you away from it. So that is why back in the early 80s, Carla developed the technique of challenging spirits that wished to speak through her in the name of that which was the center of her spiritual journey, which in her case was Jesus Christ. Since she was a 2-year-old, she was a disciple of Jesus Christ. So what this does is, by looking at that quality that is the heart of your search and that for which you live and would gladly die, whether it's Jesus or Buddha or Lao Tzu or Muhammad or any of the saints or service to others, whatever it is that is the heart of your journey, you need to challenge in the name of that quality or person, so that any entity wishing to speak through you must say the truth and either say, yes, I do come in the name of Jesus Christ, and I can say that Jesus is Lord, or they have to leave because they can't. Because when you challenge in that name or quality or person, it is as if that quality or person is right there beside you in the metaphysical realms. And there's nobody who will lie to Jesus or Buddha or Muhammad. They just, that's not a good idea. And so they leave. So that's really what was necessary in the raw contact. And Raw suggested that it would be well for all channels. And Carla, also has recommended that all through the years. Do that, learn how to challenge, because so many channels say, well, I know my channel. I know their vibration. Well, sure you do, but the negative entity knows it too, and probably better than you. So you need to make that challenge and preserve the positive information and inspiration that you have to share.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate that, Ragnar.
Jim, as you were talking, I was reminded of the use of salt and of garlic also to kind of bless or purify a space. May I ask if you think that might be appropriate for somebody who feels concerns about negative psychic readings where they're at, if they're, not necessarily channeling, but just feeling presence perhaps?
That burning sage, people have used different things to purify their houses or their rooms where they do their meditation or have channeling. I think it's a good idea. We've always done that whenever we moved. We moved a couple of times during the raw contact. We would go ahead and use the garlic and onion, not onion, just garlic and salt, and try to imbue it with our intentions to serve the creator in the positive sense. If you look at the means of doing the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram, that we found was the most effective way of purifying and protecting a place of working. And I believe that that is available on our website now, because Gary did a video of me performing it so that you can see how to do it, and there's directions on how to do it. And as you do it more and more, you become more and more effective, and it becomes more and more magical and works better. And the intention is the important thing. And the ritual is the means by which the intention flows through you and takes form and protects and purifies your place. So basically it's the intention. So sage, I've heard of many people using sage, burn sage, walk around with the intention of purifying a house or a room. And that can work too. Like I said, the intention is the most important thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I did the salt ritual and garlic at my place where we live a couple of years ago, and seemed to work well. I haven't done it since. As you understand it, is the use of salt usually something that's used to bless a new place that you're just moving into? Is it something that is meant to be done periodically or just once? Or
once was all that Ra recommended. Salt seems to be a kind of a crystal that takes in your intentions, and when you blend it with water and sprinkle enough water on to just gently dampen it, that quality of the salt crystal is brought out and is enhanced, so that it provides the protection that you intend to have provided.
Yeah, one of many beautiful magical properties of water, it would appear. I'm looking in the chat window, and I believe Curtis also had a question he wanted to ask. Is Curtis there? Curtis,
Hi, I'm here.
Like to,
I put the question in the chat though, so I can actually say it.
sure.
In my opinion, I think the most important thing that Ra told us that we had to do was see love in all distortions, see the creator in ourselves and others, see the creation among everything, and basically pray, meditate, and contemplate. And I think everything else we do from everything else is just to amuse ourselves. But these are the most important thing that we're supposed to do.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Love is the great protector, as Ross said. See the creator in all people, love the creator in all people. And that gives you the basic link to the nature of the creation and the nature of the creator. We live in a universe of love, and we live in an ocean of love. And if we can see that within ourselves and with others and around us in our lives, then everything else is simply a refinement of that basic quality. It's the building block of the universe and of our life path.
So like what everybody talks about that they see in the news, seeing what's going on, we just have to look at it with love and understand it.
Do our best to understand it. It's hard to understand, to accept it and to see each person as the creator and to send them love and light as the creator seems to be the way to go. Ross suggested that was the way that we should deal with our negative entity that was trying to stop the raw contact, trying to misplace Carla's spirit in negative realms, to send this entity love and light and see it as a creator, and then to surround ourselves in an armor of light.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
That was a beautiful question. Thank you for asking, Curtis. Yeah, I seem to remember at least a couple past closed sessions where someone on the channeling team asked something to the effect of Quo if they ever get bored answering more or less the same question time after time. And I think Quo said something to the effect, we were never aware that we were doing anything other than answering the same question, because it always does seem to come down to what Curtis was asking about and what you're affirming, that it is all about love. But every time you come back to that question, it's a little bit different, right?
Yeah, every situation is unique. Every person's unique. So you sometimes have to figure out, well, now, how does this work here? And that's where the various techniques of spiritual living, spiritual contemplation come about, trying to deal with various aspects. But the whole thing is love. That's the way it is. That's the foundation in which you build all the other buildings that you build, whatever other rooms are in there, they're built on the foundation of love.
It seems so simple, and yet these days, with what appears to be so much negativity and violence and chaos in the world, it seems so easy to forget. But I guess that's kind of why we're here, right? That's why we chose to be here.
Yeah, if we can do that under these circumstances, then we polarize much more effectively. You know, it's the way it works.
I'm looking at the clock and I'm seeing that we have roughly 15 minutes left. And I did want to encourage anyone who's in on the Zoom meeting right now, if you still have any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to go ahead and type them into the chat window. And we would love to have an opportunity for you to ask. Otherwise, I did have a question that was sent to me from Tammy, who wanted to know, Jim, if you have any thoughts on the UFO hearings that have been happening in Congress recently, I guess within this last week or so. If you are aware of those meetings or you have any thoughts on those, do you think that they are important from a Law of One perspective for students of the Law of One?
I've heard about those going on. I'm not really that much informed about exactly who is doing the research. I know they have pilots that have got films, and people are collecting the evidence of objects that are not identified. I think it might be helpful at some point if people realize that there are life forms elsewhere, but I don't know how this information is going to be used. Like I say, I've seen, even in my inbox for emails, I see UFO information revealed and so forth. And I haven't gotten into it enough. I know that there are people in the government that have information about UFOs and have had it for years. We had a friend of L&L for years who said he had a CIA informant. And the problem was they just had information that was put in various places. No one had the whole picture. And they were trying to figure out how to get the whole picture together. So I don't know if the whole picture is what people are looking for, or if they're looking for a way to defend ourselves against potential enemies. I have no idea.
That's the way it appears. I haven't really been following the hearings myself, but in the brief search I did for news stories, yeah, it seems to be yet another example of the government and the military part of government portraying any existence of UFOs as a threat to national security. It's never presented as anything that, wow, this could be really cool, or they never talk about it in terms of positive spiritual growth or evolution. It's always presented as something, as a threat, and therefore why we need to give more money to the military to defend against this extraterrestrial threat. That to me kind of tells me everything I need to know about the nature of it. That's just my opinion, of course, but that's the way it appears. Am I remembering correctly, Jim, that at some point Ra had said that, yeah, confederation entities don't appear in our skies as UFOs, that generally UFOs or appearances in our sky are more likely from Orion? Would that be fair to say?
Right. Most of the appearances that the general public sees. Sometimes there's an appearance that only those who have eyes to see. And in many cases, that is a positive entity, but not usually something that's generally seen by everybody. But there are exceptions to every rule.
It's as if this density was designed to confuse us, isn't it?
Yeah, law of confusion is working overtime.
Big time. Leon, I see you had a question that you wanted to ask. Would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan, and thanks, Jim. I heard something brand new that has had me curious since I heard it not too long ago. It's a channel and spiritual teacher saying that the state of the universe, I guess you could say, has been in that uses polarity and the suffering that comes along with it as catalyst for evolution and expansion is currently under evaluation. You know, is that the best way to accelerate and to evolve souls, I guess you could say, and that the creator's actually evaluating whether there might be a better way of doing that. How does that land for you? Any thoughts about that?
Well, actually, this is the first I've heard of that. I think that what Ra gave us is timeless information, and that if we wish to polarize the consciousness most effectively, that's certainly one way to do it. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other ways of growing spiritually. You know, each person can have variations of that, but I think in general, it's probably a good idea to make a decision whether you wish to be for love and light and unity, or separation and control. And that seems to be the way it works. Ra had this experience in their own evolution years ago when they were in third density. They did have a couple of negative entities that attempted to be of service. That actually they were positive oriented wanderers that changed their polarity in the third density. And it's something that blows your mind to think about that possibility. But it seems to be the way it works. Car batteries work when there is a potential difference between the positive and negative pole. If you don't have a potential difference, the car won't start. So I think it's the same thing in our consciousness. So that's just my opinion. I wouldn't say that there's not another way for people to grow. I mean, before the raw contact, there were entities, you know, all of the great mystics in each of the 5 major religions. I don't know if they were using polarity, but in some way, I imagine they were. It might not have been exactly the way Ra put it, you know, processing catalyst into experience, becoming significant, and, you know, making a change in your consciousness. But I have a hunch it probably was along that line in some way or fashion. So just my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you. And you reminded me of a follow-up that I had for a question a couple ago. So you said that bringing the presence of Jesus Christ or whoever's at the center of your seeking practice, I guess, is part of what makes the challenge effective. And so I can infer from that just simply challenging the entity, you know, do you come in service of the all, probably wouldn't be as potent as bringing in one of these spiritual leaders, if you will.
In my opinion, that would be the correct way of looking at it, because if you challenge in the service of the all, as far as negative entities are concerned, they're serving the all too. And the all is within them, just like it's within us. But of course, they're more all than the others are all. You know? So you got to serve them. So I would recommend making it more specific and choosing a quality or an entity that has also meaning to you, and trying to travel that path too.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Appreciate your question.
Yeah, indeed. Great question. Thank you for asking. And, you know, as you were speaking, I was reminded of a session that I read not too long ago, and it was from a Quo channeling session, and it was in October, I think, I'm looking at my notes, October 3rd, 2004. Quo said, and I'm just going to read from my notes if you don't mind. They said, the design of your particular third density world was a design in which each of your genetic races was expected to express themselves dominantly for a certain period of time. It was never intended that one race dominate your planet for an extended period of time, such as your white race has done in many cases. The energies of each race had a certain way of opening the heart, and the quite variant ways of looking at the creative principle were expected to float and flow from one dominant culture to the next in a rhythmic and natural manner. It was hoped at this point in your development as a global group that there would be at this time among all of your cultures a tendency towards the feminine principle as the creative principle or the deity. For in terms of the birthing of the fourth density of your planet, it is this creative feminine energy that holds the light of service to others in the appropriate manner for assisting the one this instrument calls Gaia, and many call the earth or Terra, in her very feminine and very profound labor. And this has not occurred. Any thoughts on that passage and how that might relate to, what we perceive in our world as racism, sexism, white supremacy culture, and all the social, political, whatever conflicts that seem to be related to that?
Well, if I understand what Quo was talking about there, and I would say that each person, as well as each race, and each religion, and each sex has the creator within and has the ability to love and nurture the creator in all other entities as well. And that as this ability to share love is practiced and enhanced, then everybody benefits. Everybody feels and grows from that love. And I think sharing it and moving from race to race and from male to female especially is the way of the equality or equalizing of every entity as the one creator, to see them that way. Ross suggested that when we can see everybody as the creator, then we are harvestable to the fourth density, that quality of seeing the creator in everybody. It raises us to a higher level of being. And I think that in the case of our planet that has been so patriarchal for so many thousand years and with so many wars, that we really do need the feminine principle, the welcoming, the nurturing, the inspiring, to raise our collective consciousness higher so that we begin to see each other as ourselves, as the creator, that there's really no difference. The law of one is a very simple way of stating it, that we are really one, but it's such a difficult thing to see throughout the thousands of years of Earth's history. So I think that's the real stepping stone to the next level, if we can do that. And I know that people all over the world in various religions and in spiritual communities are doing that very thing. And hopefully enough of them will be successful in spreading the word and spreading the seed of love that it will grow more and more on our planet, because that's something we need very badly right now. And I know there's lots of people working on that, and I really applaud their efforts and encourage us all to take part in that great journey of seeing the love and the light of the creator within every other soul.
Indeed. Yeah, and that balancing of the male and female principle seems to come back to the archetypical mind also, between the male principle of the magician and the female principle of the empress, high priestess, and so on. And I also see that in the channeling team. It's beautiful that your channeling team seems to have a pretty good balance of male and female energy too. Is that something that was consciously planned for, or is it one of those things that's just the way it manifested?
Well, it was just happily the way it manifested. We always hope to have a balance as much as possible. And in our Ella Research team now, we've made 2 new hires, both female, to help take the load off of Gary and Austin and Trish, who've been working so hard for so long. And so they're also working from a distance. One is in Dallas, Texas, and one is in California. I think, I'm not sure what the city, but anyway, both of them have been very helpful so far. And we're so glad to have them. It really helps to have a balance of energies, of all kinds of energies, and not to have too much of any one. Although if I had to go with too much, I'd go with too much female. And I don't think Yeah, we've had too much mail for too long.
Yeah. Yeah, well, indeed, as you mentioned, yes, our society has been such a dominant patriarchal society, and it still plays out. And we're seeing in the political arena efforts to control women's bodies and control their reproductive abilities and such. And seems like a power play to control that feminine power in a way that doesn't seem like it was meant to be. But again, every person has a different perspective on it and different opinion. And I guess it is just another one of those opportunities we have to make choices. And
Right.
I am looking at my clock and I'm seeing like we are just about the end of our time, and I don't think I see any other questions in the chat window. Jim, I really wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and spend time with us today. Was there anything you wanted to say as last words or thoughts in closing?
Well, I really appreciate being here. I appreciate you all inviting me back each time so I can talk to you more. I appreciate all your questions. Every question is an opportunity for us to share with each other the information that we've gotten in our own spiritual paths, and to share it with others. Ra had that quote that's so beautiful. It says, "Those who have like mind together seek shall far more surely find." So we need each other. We need to have questions and answers back and forth. And maybe one day I'll get the chance to ask you all some questions and you can tell me more about your spiritual journeys. I think that'd only be fair. But I really do appreciate being here. Everybody is a gem, with love and light shining through it. And you're all such bright souls. And I'm so glad to be with you. I love you all. And I hope you have a great month until I see you again.
We all love you very, very much, my friend. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you for all you've done in service to others and all you continue to do in service to others. And likewise, thanks and blessings to all our friends and family at LML Research for all they've done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you all for joining us on this Zoomcast today, for taking time out of your busy lives to be here. Thank you for all who are watching this on YouTube or some other time or space. Blessings to all in love and light of the one infinite creator. Adonai. Namaste.
Namaste. Love you all.